Welcome to another emotional English story. Today's story is called The Power of Forgiveness. It's a story about pain, betrayal, and finally, peace. As you listen, you'll not only improve your English, but also feel the power of letting go. Because sometimes, learning English is not just about words, it's about emotions. So, sit back, listen carefully, and if you enjoy this kind of story, don't forget to subscribe and stay with us for more inspiring lessons. Michael was a 40-year-old man who once had everything: success, friends, and dreams. People who knew him described him as kind, smart, and full of life. But all of that changed because of one man, his best friend, James. Michael and James had grown up together. They played in the same dusty streets as children, shared food when they were hungry, and promised each other that one day they would build something great together. And they did. After finishing university, they started a small business from scratch. They had no big investors, no fancy office, just determination and friendship. They worked hard, day and night. At first, things were slow, but after a few years, their company began to grow. They signed clients, made good money, and finally started living the life they had always dreamed about. Michael was proud, not just because of the business, but because he shared it with James. To him, success meant nothing without his friend beside him. He trusted James completely. If someone had told him then that James would one day betray him, he would have laughed and said, "That's impossible." But betrayal always comes when you least expect it. It started with small changes. James began acting differently. He stopped sharing details about new clients. He took phone calls in private and told Michael, "It's nothing important." Michael didn't think much about it. He believed that maybe James was just busy or stressed. He had no reason to doubt the man he called his brother. Then, one morning, everything fell apart. When Michael arrived at the office, the accountant looked pale and nervous. There was tension in the air. "Is something wrong?" Michael asked. The accountant hesitated and then whispered, "James took all the company's money. The account is empty." For a few seconds, Michael didn't move. He just stood there, frozen, staring at the man. "What are you saying?" he asked again. But deep down, he already knew the truth. James had disappeared. No calls, no messages. And the money, everything they had built together, was gone. Days turned into weeks. Michael tried to contact him, but James had blocked every number. Then came the worst part: rumors. People started saying that Michael was the one who had cheated James. James had lied to everyone, saying he was the victim, and people believed him. Within a month, Michael lost everything: his business, his reputation, and even his confidence. He stayed alone in the empty office for hours, staring at the wall where their company logo used to hang. He felt like a part of him had died. The man he once called a brother had destroyed not just his career, but his faith in people. He stopped trusting anyone. He stopped smiling. Every night, when he closed his eyes, he saw James's face and heard his voice. He imagined what he would do if they ever met again. Sometimes he dreamed of shouting at him, sometimes of hurting him. But mostly, he just dreamed of understanding why. Months passed. Michael's anger didn't fade, it grew stronger. He couldn't move forward because the past was holding him like chains. He worked small jobs, avoided friends, and lived like a shadow of his old self. The man who once built a company from nothing couldn't even build a smile anymore. One evening, his mother visited him. She looked into his tired eyes and said softly, "Michael, anger is eating you alive. You're punishing yourself for what someone else did." But Michael didn't answer. He just looked away and said, "You don't understand, Mom. He destroyed me." That night, after she left, Michael sat alone by the window. The city lights looked distant, like stars that belonged to someone else's sky. He whispered quietly, "God, why did this happen to me?" But there was only silence. In that silence, he realized something painful. No matter how much he hated James, his life wasn't getting better. The anger didn't fix anything. The hate didn't bring back what he lost. All it did was keep him trapped in the same dark place. He knew he had to move on, but he didn't know how. Forgiveness felt impossible. How could he forgive someone who had stolen his trust, his dream, his peace? He didn't have an answer. It had been more than 5 years since Michael last saw James. 5 long years filled with anger, silence, and sleepless nights. He had tried to rebuild his life, but something was always missing. He went to work, came home, paid his bills, but there was no joy. The past was still living inside him like a shadow that never left. One cold afternoon, Michael was walking home from the grocery store. The air was heavy and gray, and his thoughts were miles away. He didn't notice the small figure sitting near the corner of the park bench, until he heard a weak voice call out, "Michael, is that you?" He turned around. His heart froze. Sitting on that bench was James. But this was not the same man he remembered. James looked older, thinner, and weak. His face was pale, his eyes tired, and his hands trembled as he tried to stand. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world around them went silent. Finally, James said softly, "I didn't think I'd ever see you again." Michael's stomach tightened. A storm of emotions hit him. Anger, confusion, sadness, and something he couldn't name. He wanted to turn and walk away, but his legs refused to move. "What do you want, James?" he asked coldly. James sighed. "I don't want anything. I just wanted to see you before it's too late." Michael frowned. "Too late?" James nodded slowly. "I'm sick, Michael. The doctors say I don't have much time left." His voice cracked. "And before I go, there's one thing I need. Your forgiveness." Michael felt his chest tighten. He almost laughed, but not because it was funny, because it was unbelievable. Forgiveness? After everything he had done? He looked at James with pain in his eyes. "You stole from me. You ruined my name. You destroyed my life. And now, you come here asking for forgiveness." James lowered his head. Tears rolled down his cheeks. "I know," he whispered. "I was greedy and stupid. I thought money would make me happy, but it didn't. I lost everything, my family, my home, and my peace. Every night, I remembered what I did to you, and I prayed for a chance to say I'm sorry." Michael stood in silence. The man in front of him was not the powerful, confident James he once knew. This was a broken man, a man who had already been punished by life itself. But still, the pain inside Michael was deep. Part of him wanted to forgive, but another part screamed, "No, he doesn't deserve it." James coughed, struggling to breathe. "I don't expect you to forget," he said weakly. "I just can't leave this world knowing you still hate me." Michael turned away and looked at the sky. The sun was setting, painting the clouds in gold and red. He remembered his mother's words from years ago. "Anger is eating you alive, Michael. You're punishing yourself for what someone else did." At that moment, something inside him began to break. He realized how heavy his heart had become. How many years he had wasted carrying this pain. James had stolen his money once, but Michael had allowed him to steal his peace for 5 years. He took a deep breath and finally said, "James, I can't forget what you did, but I don't want to hate you anymore." James looked up, his eyes full of tears. "Does that mean you forgive me?" he whispered. Michael hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, I forgive you." For a few seconds, time stopped. No words, no sounds, just silence and peace. James's shoulders relaxed, and a faint smile appeared on his face. "Thank you," he said softly. "Now I can finally rest." Michael didn't know what to feel, sadness or relief. He just knew something had changed inside him. The anger that had lived in his heart for years began to fade away. It was as if a heavy stone had been lifted from his soul. He helped James stand up and walked him to a taxi. As the car drove away, Michael looked at the fading lights and whispered, "Goodbye, James." For the first time in years, his heart felt light. He didn't feel like a victim anymore. He felt free. Days passed after Michael met James. But something inside him had changed forever. He used to wake up every morning with a heavy heart, his mind full of anger and old memories that refused to fade. Now, for the first time in years, his mornings were quiet. His heart didn't feel like a battlefield anymore. He started noticing the little things again. The smell of coffee in the morning, the sound of birds outside his window, and the way the sunlight touched his kitchen table. It was as if the world had become brighter. Forgiving James didn't erase the past, but it released him from the pain that had chained him for too long. He finally understood what his mother used to say: "When you forgive, you heal yourself." Michael began spending more time at the community center in his neighborhood. He started helping young men who were struggling with anger and disappointment, just like he once did. He didn't tell them his whole story at first, but his calm presence and gentle words gave them hope. One afternoon, a boy named Ryan approached him. Ryan had lost his father and was filled with hate for the world. He told Michael, "People say forgiveness makes you weak." Michael smiled softly and replied, "No, Ryan. Forgiveness doesn't make you weak. It sets you free." That simple sentence stayed in Ryan's mind for a long time. And that day, Michael realized something beautiful. His pain had become his purpose. The thing that once broke him was now helping others heal. A few weeks later, Michael received a letter. It was from a hospital. When he opened it, his hands began to shake. It was from James. The letter was short, written in shaky handwriting. "Dear Michael, thank you for seeing me that day. I know I didn't deserve your forgiveness, but your kindness gave me peace in my last days. I passed away knowing that you no longer carried hate in your heart. That means more than anything. James." Tears filled Michael's eyes as he finished reading. He didn't feel sadness, not this time. He felt gratitude. Life had given him one last chance to let go, and he had taken it. He folded the letter carefully and placed it in his drawer. Then he looked out the window, where the evening sun was setting. The sky was painted in orange and pink, warm, peaceful, and alive. At that moment, Michael smiled and whispered to himself, "I forgive you, James, and I forgive myself too." He realized forgiveness wasn't just about others. It was about releasing his own guilt, his own pain, his own past. He had made mistakes too, like everyone does. But now, he understood that love and forgiveness were stronger than anger or revenge. As months went by, Michael's life slowly blossomed. He opened a small counseling program at the same community center, where he helped people learn about emotional healing, forgiveness, and peace of mind. His story inspired many. Some cried, some smiled, but everyone who listened felt a little lighter in their hearts. Michael didn't become rich or famous, but he became something far greater. He became free. And every evening, as he walked home under the soft glow of the sunset, he carried a calm smile on his face. A smile that said, "Pain may break us, but forgiveness builds us again. Forgive not because they deserve it. Forgive because you deserve peace." If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep learning English through inspiring and emotional stories. Together, we grow stronger in language and in life.